Good evening. One of Britain's most popular television presenters, our BBC colleague Jill Dando, has died after being attacked outside her London home. Jill, who was 37, was found with serious head injuries and taken to hospital where she was confirmed dead. The Queen has led them many tributes. She said she was shocked and saddened by the news. The Home Secretary described her death as a tragic and appalling loss.
It's a quiet, pretty avenue in southwest London where Jill Dando had lived for several years. Shortly before midday, some of her neighbours were alerted that something was wrong. Two women went towards her front door and saw someone lying on the doorstep. A third neighbour joined them.
I heard the scream.
You heard a scream?
I did hear a scream.
Did you hear a man's voice or anything like that?
No man's voice at all.
And did you hear a shot or did you...
There was no shots. From what I would say was a shot. I wouldn't have thought there was a shot, no.
From your assessment, what appeared to have happened to her?
She was obviously attacked, and whether she was attacked with a knife or whether she was attacked with some sort of instrument, but she certainly... She is obviously very shocked what happened, and...
She was conscious, she was talking?
She wasn't conscious when I saw her.
And what did you do, dial 999 straight away?
I personally didn't, but the people I was with, the two ladies who also live in the street, dialed the number and had the ambulance services there within 10 minutes. Or
what did you do with Jill? Did you comfort her or?
No, obviously we were there, but without any sort of medical history between the three of us, you know, the best thing was just to keep her sort of, unless she had woken up from her consciousnness, and help her, but we left her there until the ambulance services came.
You saw this man yourself?
I have a particular vision of the guy. Yes, I did see him.
What exactly was he doing? How close were you? What did he do?
He walked very calmly away from the scene, and when I actually saw him, I thought nothing of it. I thought, in fact, it could have been a friend of Jill's when I heard the screaming. That's why I particularly at that moment didn't do anything that now I wish I could have done.
Taken by ambulance to Charing Cross Hospital, she remained unconscious, having suffered serious head injuries.
Jill Dando arrived here by ambulance at 12:30 p.m. Despite all efforts by hospital paramedics, ambulance paramedics and hospital medical staff, she was certified dead at 1:03 p.m.
Several people saw a man near the house at the time, saying he was walking briskly, possibly running away.
A man was seen leaving from outside number 29 Gowan Avenue, and he ran east down this road towards the Fulham Palace Road. A man between late 30s and 40s, white. He was carrying a mobile phone, he was clean shaven, and he had dark hair. The witnesses describe him as being well groomed, possibly wearing a jacket or a suit. And anybody who knows that man or anybody else who saw that person out there, we would like to speak to.
The street has been sealed off all day, with a police investigation launched into the death of someone known to millions of people through television, whose neighbours knew her and who was an outgoing, friendly person, modest about her celebrity. Like many in the public eye, there were reports that she'd attracted unwanted attention from strangers. However, she was hugely popular and had just embarked on a new television series, presenting an antiques program. She was planning to get married to Alan Farthing, a gynecologist, later this year. Tributes to her have been coming in all day. She'd worked successfully on a range of programs, and she was appreciated well beyond the media world.
Jill Dando, who was someone who was known to virtually everybody in this country, if not personally. She was someone who was at the height of her powers. She had done a huge amount, personally, in the fight against crime by her role, not least in Crime Watch UK, and therefore this makes her death all the more poignant.
She was a very modest person. She had genuine warmth. She was the same, you know, on screen and off screen. I think it was her ambition to be in broadcasting. She wanted to be a broadcaster of, you know, breadth. She did the news, she did Holiday. She wanted to make popular mainstream television and be, you know, at the heart of a news service as well. I think she, and somehow she touched people. People loved Jill.
A post-mortem took place this afternoon. So far, the police have not said how she was killed. It's rare that a reporter can say that a murder victim was the kind of woman who had no enemies. I can say that about Jill Dando. Her death is a shock to all who knew her personally, and also to millions of people who knew her as a friendly, charming person on television. Kate Adie, BBC News, Fulham.
And a short time ago, Jill Dando's brother Nigel talked about how much he would miss his sister.
It does seem like we all knew Jill Dando in some way, through the television or whatever. I mean, how do you remember her as brother and indeed as your dad?
Well, as I say, I mean, she was, as far as my dad's concerned, I mean, she was a devoted daughter, and for me, sort of loving sister. Well, I mean, we're going to miss her, obviously, dreadfully. And I think people who knew her in a way through her appearances on TV, they're obviously going to miss her greatly.
And how will she be remembered in Weston as well? We've cruised around here today and met people who know her involvement with the hospice in amateur
Well,
drama.
that's right. I mean, she started, as you're probably aware, she started her journalistic career on the local paper here in Weston-super-Mare, the Western Mercury. And although she'd gone on to work for the BBC in London, her roots were still here. She had a lot of friends here. She's devoted a lot of time to charitable causes in and around the Weston-super-Mare area, and she gave a lot of her time to good causes in Weston. So, I mean, as I say, people, not only the immediate family, but a lot of other people in Weston and the Weston area who are going to be deeply, deeply saddened by what's happened today.
When did you last see her? Was it?
Saw her on Easter Sunday, and she and her fiancé Alan Farthing and my father had all come over to the house where my wife and I live near Bath. And we'd all had Sunday lunch together, so that would have been about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Yeah, she was on good form, looking forward to a wedding. So obviously, as I say, we were so looking forward to that, and now this. So you can imagine how we feel about that.
Jill Dando was one of television's top presenters for more than a decade. She joined the BBC's Breakfast News show in 1988 and went on to present several of the BBC's most popular programmes, including Crime Watch and The Holiday Show.
Same man. So your calls really do count as the result.
She was the golden girl with a golden personality, who on programmes like Crime Watch made broadcasting seem effortless and charmed viewers and colleagues alike. Today, they were stunned by her death.
The shock is really palpable. She was somebody who had, I can't believe we're talking in the past tense about her. She was somebody who had such joie de vivre, such, passion about life. She was everything one could want in a colleague and a friend.
This brings back memories. I had my first job on this paper.
She grew up and first became a journalist in Weston-super-Mare. Last year, she went back for holiday, revisiting old haunts, meeting old friends. The shy little girl became one of the nation's most famous faces, but she never lost her rapport with ordinary people, never became a prima donna.
The last time I saw Jill, we had lunch. We walked from my office to a nearby restaurant. We reached some traffic lights, and she almost caused a pile-up because 3 different drivers were busy watching her rather than watching the road. And she was always amazed at the fact that people found her attractive.
Good evening. Urgent talks have been taken.
From Weston, she went to the BBC in Plymouth by way of local radio. They soon saw she'd go far.
She had a sense of humour. She was bubbly. She was the girl next door. She was that sort of person, and everybody liked Jill. She got on very well with everybody, so she was held in a lot of affection by everybody here.
London soon beckoned. She'd begun presenting breakfast television in 1988.
There is just one story this morning, the dramatic end of the Gorbachev era in the Soviet Union.
For 7 years, she had an affair with the programme's editor, Bob Wheaton. Today, he recalled her warmth and gentleness. In spite of her fame, she'd remained the person she'd been all those years ago in Weston-super-Mare, a girl from a Christian home who'd had a dream and lived it.
This atmosphere has led to any alteration in weather patterns.
She was a regular presenter of the 6 o'clock news, but refused to let her name go forward when the BBC was looking for a single presenter of the programme. Off-screen, she was constantly busy with charity work.
She was the sort of person that we all grew to love. She was exactly as everybody sees her on the TV, warm and loving and friendly.
Her private life was often public. Earlier this year, she announced her engagement to a doctor she'd met on a blind date. She'd reached a peak in her personal as in her professional life. On screen, she was a natural, will be remembered for her sheer professionalism, but also her unfeigned warmth and kindness.
Well, joining us now in the studio is the Director General of the BBC, Sir John Burt. John, how will you remember Jill?
Like so many people who've just spoken, a person whose public persona was the same as her private persona. As we all know, she was She was a warm, loving, friendly, unaffected person, and that's how she was with the teams that she worked with in the BBC, with her family and friends, and it's those qualities that the audience at home saw and learned to love.
As you say, she was relatively unaffected by her fame. It almost seemed to take her by surprise.
She remained extraordinarily modest. She wasn't a prima donna. Fame had not gone to her head. I've been talking to all the programme teams that work with her today, and they all say the same thing, which Jill mucked in.